Hi, everyone. Happy Tuesday. It's Black Hat. It also might be Black Tuesday with all heck breaking loose on the markets worldwide. We've got that. We've got a Gen AI comes to the mainframe, as well as is quantum computing going to be more sustainable. You're watching Techstrong Gang. Hi, everyone. Alan Schimmel here for Techstrong Gang. You're watching this. I'm out in Vegas for Black Hat. But we've got a lot going on, not only in Black Hat, but the state of the world. We're going to be talking about all these subjects. We've also got some good Gen AI coming to the mainframe segment today. And then our own Bonnie Schneider has a report on applying quantum computing to sustainability. And we're also going to, immediately following this gang show, we will be live at Tech Field Day, which is always a great event to listen in on. Before we get started, though, let me introduce you to our gang members today. Joining me also from Black Hat this week is our editor, John Swartz. John,
hi.
Welcome to Las Vegas.
Yeah, steaming Las Vegas, yes.
Yes, it's going to be. Actually, already in Las Vegas, because he likes to get out there early. I don't know whether it's to roll dice or whatever one does in Las Vegas early. What happens in Vegas stays there. It's our own CTA, Mitch Ashley. Hey, Mitchell, welcome.
Hey, good to be talking to you from Black Hat.
So is it a dry heat?
It's just a heat. It was 101 degrees when I got off the plane. That's 8:30 last night. So
wow.
There you go.
All right.
I have one jackets.
Well, anyway, welcome, Mitchell. And then joining us live here in our Boca Raton headquarters before we all head out, to my immediate left is our Echo Insights editor and analyst, Bonnie Schneider. Hey, Bonnie, how are you?
Doing well, thanks.
Good. And to my far left, he'll be holding the fort down here in Boca this week. It's our Chief Content Officer, Mike Vizard. Hey, Mike.
Hello. Good to see you as always.
Excellent to see you. So, guys, look, it's summer camp for the cyber world in Vegas. Black Hat, DEF CON, B-Sides Vegas, give a shout out to them. It's always one of my favorite B-Sides. A lot going on. Of course, the CrowdStrike incident is kind of sucking a lot of oxygen. But there's always a lot going on at Black Hat. I mean, if you look at the roots of Black Hat, it was different than RSA. Black Hat was very much aimed at AppSec. It was very much aimed at exploits and security research. The last several years, it has become RSA in the desert. It's all things security. But, John, you had a great write-up on this over on the Security Boulevard. Why don't you kick us off with your Black Hat preview?
Yeah, sure. So there's going to be two obsessions. One of them was already planned. The other one was, of course, a surprise. The surprise was CrowdStrike, right, which basically put the spotlight on security, especially among the mainstream media. So everyone was covering it. It was a national news story. And I think what's going to happen, and what I've talked to about 24 folks who are attending the show, all from security companies, and they all pivoted to not the downside of the outage, but they see a marketing opportunity, obviously. So in a sense, this show has a very heavy marketing influence. And so a lot of them are going to lean into the CrowdStrike outage and the importance of security, especially in the AI age. So one of the things that I kept coming across, and these executives kept bringing up among themselves and the companies, the customers they work for, is the importance of understanding a company's structure and rules and the potential privacy and compliance issues that are arising as they plunge into AI. And again, CrowdStrike was a human error, but it kind of raises the temperature, so to speak, in Vegas even more so about the importance of this. And it will also bring more attention from the mainstream who's covering this, because they love cybersecurity breaches. They love disaster happening to consumers. I mean, I'll admit it. The other thing that will be talked about, and there were a number of panels already planned, was disinformation or misinformation. So this is a year where half the world's population will be eligible to vote, including obviously November 5th. And one of the fears is that AI is going to turbocharge phishing. One executive I talked to referred to AI as a weapon of mass deception. So there were a number of studies, market research that show a spike in phishing incidents because of AI. So those are the two dominant themes, CrowdStrike and disinformation. And I think what a lot of these companies are going to do is use this as an opportunity to sell. Exactly right. And to bring attention to themselves and maybe fundraise.
So, Mitch, how long have you and I been going to Black Hat?
Early 2000s, 2003.
2003. I think that's when we started. I could count on one hand, actually on three fingers, the amount of years that there isn't a major security breach right before Black Hat or a major security incident right before Black Hat that drives the world round and round and round.
Is this a conspiracy?
I'm not a conspiracy theory kind of guy.
That's I remember Alan.
Who said?
I remember Alan. I think one of the first ones you and I went to. Remember the old Apple commercials where Apple's secure and you can't, as Apple or PC, and they had set a team to break into an Apple to a Macintosh, and they got through an Adobe vulnerability and they hacked.
I remember
within
that
a few
one.
minutes. Yeah, that was the big splash.
That was a big one.
Hack a Mac.
But, it's just, it's not a conspiracy theory, but it's just the way of the world, I guess, because on any given week, there's a good breach. Though this one, CrowdStrike one, is a doozy. But the other thing is, though, and it gets back to what I said in the opening, there was a time where Black Hat was about research, about exploits, Barnaby Jack making the ATM machine spit dollars out on the stage. Right? Remember that, Mitch? But it's not anymore. This is RSA. It's a security show for the security industry. There was a time where DEF CON attracted all the feds, and that was a great place where they, the federal security apparatus intermingled with, it's called a gray hat, white hat kind of community. But a lot of that's been replaced in Black Hat for just bright lights and sizzle. And it's a lot of companies vying in a very crowded space for marketing. And then, John, to your point, one of the things I used to hate it when I ran Still Secure with Mitchell and our friend Raj Bhargava is stepping on the backs of your competitors, right? Something like this happens with CrowdStrike, and you send out an email that says, this wouldn't have happened if you used Acme's company, right? Or Acme Security, or trade in your CrowdStrike for Acme Security, wabba-dabba-doo. Either you got the goods or you don't have the goods. Don't,
the grace of God next week.
Yeah, because it could happen to any one of them.
So a lot of these companies were sympathetic on that point. Actually, there was only one company that refused to talk about CrowdStrike under any circumstances, and that was Palo Alto Networks.
Good for them. I give them credit.
Yeah, they weren't the only. Everybody else wanted to sell fear, honestly.
Yeah, no, that's what they do. They step on someone's back until it's their turn, right? Because it's the zebra herd, and one day the lion's going to get you. And
it's interesting that you mentioned. Sorry, Alan. It's interesting you mentioned it because back in the early 2000s, I used to go to Black Hat. I used to cover cybersecurity at a newspaper, and I went with my colleague, and it seems so much different now than it was back then. I mean, now it seems more like just an RSA in the desert, as you said.
Yeah,
it's kind of become more of just a marketing concept.
Absolutely. I mean, back then, and Mitch, he can tell you this. It was at Caesars. There was no exhibit hall. The sponsors lined up in the hallway outside the briefing rooms, and you had a little stand in the hallway. We always like to get the one near, I forgot what they call it, the Venus Pool.
Venus Pool, that's what it was.
Right, where it was clothing optional. And you know what? We would bring a pair of binoculars, and I'd have people lined up down the hall. The only thing is, before I let you use the binoculars, we had to scan your badge. And
Different day, different time.
I don't know. I guess everybody really is naked when it comes to cybersecurity.
Yeah. But it was a very different show then. Very different.
Well, let me ask you something about, there has been a change, I think, in tenor. And it's not the first time we've seen this in a show, but the keynotes for this thing are led by the head of CISA, the head of security for Europe, and the head of security for the UK. And they're all government-led people. So have governments become the primary leaders and drivers of the cybersecurity community? It seems like there's been a subtle shift now where they are kind of front and center. Almost every week they have some sort of announcement about something that they're doing these days. And so has the mojo changed?
Well, the government, as I said earlier, the government was always a big player at Black Hat DEF CON. And there's another change, John. You were there early, Mitch, too. It was Black Hat DEF CON.
Right.
Right? You went just from Black Hat into DEF CON. Mm-hmm. And you spent the week.
It was it was one continuous show. Right.
They very much, but in those days, the government, we had a lot of government people wouldn't say they were government people back then.
A lot of FBI, if I remember. Yeah, a lot of FBI folks that you knew were from the government.
Yeah. But I mean, to your point, Mike, the governments of the world have gotten actively involved in regulating and dictating cybersecurity policy. Right? We didn't, we had Graham Leach Bliley back in the day. But we didn't have anything like what we have now around SBOMs and software supply chain security and the EU stuff, GDPR and DORA and what have you. I think on the good side, it points to that cybersecurity has arrived. It is truly the priority we always said it was. And it's on, top of everyone's mind. The bad side is, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
I have a question about that because when we look at what's going on, I haven't been to Black Hat, so I don't know what it was like years past or now. But is it different this year because you have such a conflation of so many events in the days leading up to Black Hat with the stock market, with what's happening in the Middle East and what's happening with this upcoming election? It just seemed just on the outside that there's a lot happening that maybe will take away a little bit of the focus on CrowdStrike. I'm not sure, but there just seems like a conflation of events going into this year.
Yeah, the stock market is probably going to overwhelm in terms of talking points.
Bonnie, I think it's also that we talk much more about critical infrastructure now. We weren't really conceiving in the early days of Black Hat, how sensitive those things were. And I think security people have a much greater appreciation now because we so often work with law enforcement, because oftentimes an attack will turn into something that's going to be, reported to the law enforcement or at least informing them about it. So that partnership has come a long ways. It didn't kind of happen overnight. I remember when Richard Clark came, he was like the first security czar. I think it was 2007, something like that. So around
I think it was under W.
Was it under W? So it was a little earlier than that. Yeah, that was kind of what I remember as the first big government presence.
Yes, he also was a major figure at RSAs. I remember
for years and years,
post 9/11. Right.
Richard was a friend, and what a body of work he has as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it is. I think, talking about the market and stuff like that, the cybersecurity industry, as I said, it's taken such a top of mind place. There's so much money investing. When I first started going to Black Hat, I think there were 800 venture-backed cyber companies, and we used to say, can't support more than 300-400. Half of these guys are going to go out of business. I think the last number I saw, I forgot if it was 3,500 or 7,000, some outrageous number of venture-backed cyber or public cyber companies. So any news on the financial markets is going to be big news within the cyber industry. And again, this has become a show for the industry, by the industry.
So would you say that half the cybersecurity vendors are probably for sale?
I think half of the venture-backed tech vendors in general are probably for sale, if not more. I think it's just, we're seeing analysts come out with stuff every day with this. I mean, when the market goes down and the IPO doesn't become a viable liquidity, everybody's for sale because you got nowhere else to go.
Yep, the sale begins.
Yeah.
Well, so if someone comes and beats you up and says, you know what, you should replace CrowdStrike, you might want to ask them, are you going to be here next year?
I think people do ask that. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, because you have to, what's your staying power?
You can even look at, it was reported that Warren Buffett, who's the largest Apple shareholder, sold off a good portion of his shares. He's still the largest shareholder. But the speculation is that he's anticipating the market go down, and that's when you're going to buy and invest. So he's freeing up cash to be able to do that in anticipation.
I wonder if Wiz is wondering whether they should have walked away from the Google offer.
I was wondering that.
That $23 billion is looking real good right about now. Though you don't know how much of that was stock.
Yeah, sure.
Right? And so you're trading one stock for another. But look, at the end of the day, let me close because we're over time on this section. We could talk about valuations and finance and all of these things. Black Hat is still about security, and we're going to have a lot of great security discussions there. We will be there all week, streaming live, along with our friends from Futurum. We have a party tonight at the Mandalay Bay Pool. If anyone on Black Hat or out in Vegas watching this, probably Google it. You need to register at Eventbrite for it. But, John, you'll be doing all kinds of interviews and briefings as well.
We all will be, right? I'll be going from one to another all day, Tuesday, today, and Wednesday.
I want to clarify one point. No naked people at the pool tonight.
Right?
Oh. No, that was at Caesar's Palace.
Okay.
Damn.
This is at the Mandalay Bay Pool. But we do have a tent there, a kind of celebrity tent, and drinks and food, and seeing all my friends. So, and if nothing else, look, there's 2 times a year I get to see all my buds and gals from cyber. It's RSA and it's Black Hat, and even Hoff is back. I don't know if he's probably not watching this, but he's going to be at Casa Fuente tonight.
His old hangout.
Cigars, like old times. I don't even know if Casa Fuente is there anymore. But anyway, good luck with you coming to Black Hat, and you see any of our crew, do say hello. But we're going to take a break now. We're coming back to talk about Gen AI coming to the mainframe.
All right, folks, we're back, and we're talking about Gen AI and the mainframe. BMC is out previewing some tools that is showing, including an AI agent that helps you convert your code into something else, and they're going to have all kinds of AI agents for managing the mainframe. And it seems like it's part of this whole effort to democratize this venerable platform that used to require a lot of skills to manage. Mitch, what's your take on what's going on here? I think that this is part of a much larger trend, but does the mainframe just become another platform?
Well, I think it's the mainframe is a compute, software, data environment, just like anything else. And it has its it's been around a long time. It has its own complexities, and new people are coming in to take those jobs for folks that may have retired out of mainframe type of work. So you have this, one of the biggest factors is training people up on mainframe systems and code. And a lot of that code is, been out there for a while. And so, but the people that wrote it are long gone, retired, and you need some way of understanding what's happening. So there's a lot of things about operating, managing, developing, writing code, translating code, understanding what it is. And there's a really great article on DevOps.com talking about John McKinney from BMC about the new automated mainframe intelligence, DevX code. It's pretty interesting. I think what's sort of a nostalgic about this, I'm showing my age, nostalgic about this is the first expert system that I worked on was actually an expert system to diagnose failures on the mainframe. This is in the 80s, so it tells you how far back that goes. So I think it's exciting for people developing and operating mainframe environments to have the benefits of what Gen AI can bring to it.
Kudos for owning up to that, Mitchell.
Now, I come for confessions on when I'm at Black Hat. You got to be
Hail Marys and enjoy Black Hat. So look, I think this is a testament to the versatility of this venerable platform. How's that for some big words, huh?
Wow, there's some college words.
Big ones. But if you look at what's been going on with the mainframe in the last 10 years, even, IBM and the rest of the community, including BMC and Broadcom, CA, and CA, and then became Broadcom and Rocket. They've done a great job of modernizing the mainframe. We talk about app modernization on mainframe, but really they've modernized the platform. And so it runs Java, it runs Kubernetes, it runs all of these, modern languages. Why shouldn't we bring Gen AI to it? The question I have, though, is, does the Gen AI live on the mainframe? In other words, is that AI itself living on the mainframe, or are we going out to an AI in the cloud or something that then tells the mainframe what to do or things?
And is it cost effective to run it on the mainframe?
The answer is
price per bit is different.
They're going to do all of the above. They'll have local agents, and then they'll call out to some extent.
Because there's no GPUs, right? You're not starting to stick NVIDIA chips on this thing.
IBM, oddly enough, has an AI chip for the mainframe that's kind of a coprocessor that they created. So they might be able to kind of think about that as in a different light, but we'll see. It's still early days.
Yeah.
I have to laugh, though. So a couple of weeks back, I'm, sitting in a bar here locally in Florida, and you meet
what a surprise!
and you meet some fella, and you ask him, what do you do? And half the time in Florida, the answer is I'm retired.
Yeah.
Right.
But the guy laughs. He says, well, sort of. I'm on a consulting gig to support this IBM mainframe for the last 5 years, and he's probably looking to support that for the next 5 years.
And he probably could.
But it may be not, because if we democratize this stuff, then, it becomes more accessible to and more realistic to use kids now to manage the mainframe.
You'd be surprised at the amount of kids who do manage mainframes. I do the Open Mainframe show with the Open Mainframe Project from Linux Foundation, and a huge gist of their efforts are on getting kids in colleges here in the U.S. and especially in India, teaching them COBOL, teaching them mainframe, and getting them involved, because you know what? There's a lot of jobs in the mainframe market, and a lot of the mainframe folks are retired, and we are looking for fresh blood and fresh, workers there. So it does come to that. I don't know. Let's not repeat the mistakes we've made with Gen AI, thinking it's the be all and end all. I don't know if Gen AI is going to democratize the mainframe, right? I think you're still going to need mainframe skill sets to do the mainframe. AI will make you just the way it makes it can make every developer, tester, and everyone else 10x more effective or efficient. But I don't know if it's going to take jobs away from mainframe people.
I'm not entirely certain it plays out exactly that way. I think that if you listen to IBM and BMC and even Broadcom, they're all trying to figure out how to turn that mainframe into just another node on a distributed computing environment. And it'd be the mainframe, the cloud, the local on-premise stuff. And it feels like we're trying to take down all the walls that have existed in these different silos and reduce our need for specialization in all these platforms. And I think one of the benefits of just having a prompt to interface with things is I can play more easily. I can figure out how something works or doesn't work. I can tell it how to do it. I can do it iteratively. So even if I don't know what I'm doing, I can learn a faster way. So that's why I think we might see some actual democratization of all of these platforms.
I think that the word I remember hearing is homogeneous environments. How do you make that, operate so it isn't so starkly different from I do these things this way in the mainframe environment, I do this way in the cloud or Linux or whatever it is. I mean, the two will never be the same, in terms of knowledge and skills. But a lot of the things that we do today in the cloud, came from the mainframe environment. So they're that far off.
Cool. And then the question becomes, well, if I can find more people to manage the mainframe, will more organizations use mainframes? Because it's always had this issue of being the $1 million club. I had to have X amount of budget and then I could get all the ROI benefits, but maybe mainframes become more accessible to more organizations.
Well, there's still a hefty price tag to get started in that business.
Yeah.
You just don't go down to Best Buy and pick up a Z. But maybe they will. That's part of the democratization process.
Could happen one day.
Would you like water cooling with that?
Yeah.
It's like water cooling.
Yeah, I'll take that water cool.
With factory,
and I'd like that Sony 85-inch monitor, please.
We got a special on chillers in the back.
You got a deal. Sounds Jetson-ish. But anyway, lots going on with the mainframe. We're going to take a break here on Techstrong Gang, and we're coming back from mainframe to quantum. Sustainable? Do we care? Bonnie Schneider's going to clue us in.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
Quantum computing, well, it's supposed to be working faster than, let's say, a supercomputer. But did you know that quantum computing is also helping in efforts towards sustainability? Recently, I spoke with Bill McGann, who is the CEO of QCI Quantum, to talk more about his operation, quantum computing, and the innovative work that they're doing in the area of being environmentally responsible.
Computers in general really have an advantage. You can basically use principles of quantum mechanics to cast your problem into a variety of system states or eigenstates simultaneously. And when you do that, you're allowed to search the space for solutions that are faster than you can do with a classical machine, which tends to have to do the calculations sort of in a, expanded, kind of factorial, combinatorial approach. Quantum computers can use superposition to simultaneously cast the problem into multiple states at the same time and search for a solution. So it's faster and can eliminate the trap of getting caught in a local ground state, which is not really the best answer. So our approach is we use photonics, where we can use photons to encode a problem that you want to solve, and then run that photonic information through our system in a feedback where we can modulate the energy of the photon, modulate its loss. And when you do that in a quantum system, you will naturally fall into what is called the ground state. And that ground state represents the best answer for the problem that you initially encode into the system.
That makes sense. Can you tell us about some of your case studies? Like what have you done in terms of solutions for clients, and maybe give us some examples?
Sure. So, I mean, like any type of computer technology, you could imagine using quantum computers for just about anything you can imagine using a computer for. But we're a very small company, and based on our architecture, we build quantum optimization machines, meaning trying to find the best configuration of a very complex problem. And so our area of focus right now is in energy, transportation, and infrastructure. So examples are, we can optimize the number of sensors you put on an autonomous vehicle for driving to have collision avoidance and effective low cost, right? We can also optimize the placement of wind turbines in a wind farm to maximize the output from each wind turbine, minimizing the interaction between them, which causes inefficiencies in the energy production and also adds considerable services cost for the so-called yaw of the nacelles that are interacting with each other. And into energy grid management, we can even look at some financial optimization problems. So the area is quite vast, but our area is really energy, transportation, and infrastructure to find answers to complex problems.
So when it comes to sustainability, it's almost as always a double-edged sword, because we're talking about quantum computing as a way to compute faster, be more energy efficient. But just as when we talk about data centers, one of the issues with quantum computing is the energy that it uses to do the quantum computing, and also the cooler environments needed to support it. Now, Bill McGann is, as you heard in the interview, and if you go to Techstrong TV, you'll see an even more extended interview with Bill. But one of the things he mentioned is that QCI is innovative in what they're doing, and they've been able to do quantum computing in more of a lukewarm environment versus cool to reduce energy. And one final note on sustainability, quantum computing is also anticipated to help with discover new ways to mitigate the effects of climate change in terms of climate technology. So it's interesting to see how it's being applied and the drawbacks, and see if that the balances, if the positives outweigh the negatives.
My take is, when we're dealing with new technologies like this, and quantum is still, bleeding edge, sustainability and efficiencies generally take a back seat to just getting the damn thing to work, right? Like right now, I thought the thing was we're trying to get to 100 qubits, or is it 100 or 1,000 qubits, whatever it is. There's a certain amount of qubits that's going to allow us to really be commercially viable here. And I think it's going to be, breakneck, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead till you reach that level. Once you reach that level where we are really commercializing it and not just science experiments, then you'll start looking at improvements and efficiencies that'll help with things like sustainability and power consumption. And because my understanding is, for quantum computing, you do have to have like kind of superconductors at, very, very low kelvins and all of that stuff. So, but look, there's no doubt we will continue to improve that. That's just the way of the world.
The whole thing often leaves me scratching my head, because somebody will announce that they are running some type of workload on quantum computing and achieved Y. And then about 6 months later, somebody goes, hey, that traditional computing workload that was on quantum, we now can run it on a standard thing, and it's faster than the quantum thing if we run it on the standard thing. And I feel like we haven't quite established, what exactly are the use cases that we're
what's the killer apps?
Right. That we couldn't do on something else that is eventually going to get faster anyway.
I think encryption key. I was just going to say that, breaking RSA encryption.
This is true.
Though, as a result, the new certificates and stuff coming out now are quantum proof.
Mm-hmm. Allegedly, nation states are collecting all the encrypted data they can find on the assumption that they're going to be able to crack it in 5 years using quantum.
So are the bad guys.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Maybe that's
interesting. We were talking about power consumption and water for quantum. Living in Colorado, NREL is one of the government agencies that has labs up there in Boulder, Colorado. It's focused on energy, and they're giving presentations a lot. I see it quite often on energy consumption and quantum computing and methods. the holy grail is kind of getting to room temperature quantum, right. Where you can, you don't have to have, close to absolute zero practically to run a quantum computer. So people, I compare it to, is quantum computing a super collider that only a few governments around the world are going to be on one of those things because they're so expensive and so, technically difficult to run? Or are they going to be something that makes it into the mainstream of science and business and things like that? And that's what people are trying to push it to, beyond what you do in the lab.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think there were a lot of use cases for it.
That's interesting what Mitch said, because I was in Chattanooga about a year and a half ago, and I visited a quantum computing company, quantum networking company, which is near the Tennessee Valley Authority, or this part of it is there. And it's just this whole idea of like accessibility beyond only a specialized view. And so when I hear about sustainability and quantum, it always seems to be a contradiction in terms, but no, things are changing.
Yeah, I think the room temperature part that Mitch mentioned is key to that, because that was something GCI is doing in their endeavors. And also any kind of innovative strategy that's going to help, let's say, make renewable energy more efficient or more effective, like using quantum computing to improve the ability for solar power panels to, absorb solar energy, things like that is also part of the equation. But I agree that it still has a ways to go, but it's interesting to see the different industries that's being impacted and the sustainability angle.
I'm waiting on the cloud service providers to show me that quantum API so I can just use my...
Well, Amazon's going to roll out a quantum service.
I need one for my email inbox. That's what, if it solved that, I'd be happy.
I'll tell you, anybody want to take bets? What comes first, cold quantum or cold fusion?
Wow. I would say, though, to your point about Black Hat, people do need to start replacing those encryption schemes, because it takes a while to get...
No. So I'll tell you, this is the first time I've ever seen people get out ahead of something. Mm-hmm. And there was NIST was behind this, working with MITRE, and the new algorithms are, I haven't tested them, but they're supposedly quantum proof, and they're in place way ahead of the rollout of quantum computing. So, but we say, what's going to be the killer app of quantum? Well, what are you going to use it for? Well, once you have it and it gets into people's hands, there'll be uses we haven't quite thought of yet, both good and bad, unfortunately, because that's just, again, that's the way of the world. My 2 cents.
So are we going to be like, this whole quantum thing, you're going to have like 2 bits in 2 different places?
Right.
So, are we going to...
in 2 different states.
2 different states. So, is that going to lead to like all kinds of changes? Can I be on Zoom in 2 different places at the same time eventually?
Maybe.
I'm not going to answer that one.
Get a digital twin.
You think about the strangest things that you're laying up at night, Mike.
Just in the moment.
The uncertainty principle strikes again.
Heisenberg.
The far side of life is
who works on mainframes tell you this, or what?
We're going to change your name to Heisenberg.
Heisenberg. Chaos. All right. So I think that's going to wrap up our Techstrong Gang today. I want to mention we have a special Techstrong Gang report coming up later today as well on what's going on with Intel, if you haven't been following the news there. And is that just the precursor to what we're seeing going on in the markets worldwide yesterday? And it's going to be great. We'll be joined by Daniel Newman, CEO, Principal Analyst at Futurum. Jon will be with us, Jon Swartz, and Mike Vizard and I. But for now, stay tuned. We're going to go live to Tech Field Day. If you've never seen a Tech Field Day, they're a lot of fun. Check them out. I'm Alan Schimmel. Mitch, Jon, I'll see you guys in Vegas. Mike, Bonnie, thank you. You've just watched Techstrong Gang.